Talking with Mayor Bob McManus here on this first Friday of the month of December. You can too at 384-2192, 384-2191 here as we talk about the business around the city of Marshfield in the past and upcoming month. If you're watching us, this is on video here on Facebook and also at Marshfield Media Access, and they'll be on their YouTube channel as well. So we have the ability to see us. I know that's a thrill for everyone out there. So let's go to the phone. Good morning. You're on with the mayor. Hello, you're on the air. Okay. 384-2192 is the number here. There has also been, well, let's see. We have two main issues, I guess. One is the city budget. It was approved.
Yes, it was approved at 7.4%. Now the overall, just the city budget was approved at 7.4%, which will mean, but the city is one of 5 taxing entities. So the actual overall tax increase that people will see on their tax bill is going to be 3.5%. So in essence, you know that their taxes are on $100,000 home, taxes go up about $72 on that home for the year. If it's $200,000 home, $145, something along those. The very unique thing about this is this will be the first time since 2011, I believe, Ron Almond is the finance director of the city, that the city will actually be covering its debt, meaning the city finances will be working correctly. So although it is a big jump, a couple good things happen because of it. First of all, nobody wants a tax increase. Nobody wanted a tax increase due to COVID. I mean, I was talking about that way back in April, long before we even went into budget season. It just, when the facts got in the way and you started to see how deep the hole would be and how many years it would take to dig ourselves out of this if we don't do this right. The other big thing is Moody's had downgraded the city's credit. And when they downgraded the city's credit, they also put in negative outlook. Now, what that means is if you all don't do something, we're going to downgrade you again. And if you start looking at getting downgraded again from where we were, and our credit rating is still good, it's just not as good as it could be. But if you have too many downgrades, you know, and your interest rate goes up half, maybe 3/4 or a full percent over where you should be, you know, 1% interest doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're borrowing $4 million at a time, 1% interest is significant. And so Moody's was not aware, did not know, they said in their report, that if we would be able to make enough of an increase to get rid of the negative. So with us going and taking care of this we started last year and taking care of it this year, now we should be on a good, I would hope, I hope that's going to scream loudly with them. That would be my hope, to where our credit rating remains good and they take off the negative outlook. Because when we do go to borrow, and there is going to be borrowing coming up, we want to remain in good shape, because that would cost, negative credit rating would cost a lot of money. And then you're right back to having to cover that debt.
How much business are we doing on credit when you just told me that we are finally collecting enough money to do business as a city? I mean,
to cover our debt payments. And so that's, I believe right now we're at 54% is our debt, the amount of debt that we have, and we were up at 59%. So now we should see our debt going down every year. So we're reducing our debt, but you have to have enough tax levy to cover your debt, which we had not had in the past since 2011. Now that we will be covering our debt, and it will be decreasing, we should be in good shape for the years coming up. So I'm very hopeful that next year, we're not going to be able to keep singing the same song of, for the last decade, it was done wrong, we got to fix it. Essentially now, the problem that was there has been resolved. So now we'll be starting off in a much better situation. Hopefully it's going to work out better next year.
I'll get back to that in a moment, but how can you have a 7% increase and yet my taxes only increased 3%?
Because you have 4 other taxing entities that didn't have those increases. I believe one of them had a decrease. And so when you look
that all is on my bill that
Yes.
factors into my cost?
Yes. So if you look at your tax bill, you'll see that there's 5 different entities there. There's the school district, Wood County, the state, the school district, the university, and the tech school. And so those are all taxing entities. And so ours is just one of them. And so when you look at some of the other ones that didn't have those dramatic increases, maybe they only went up 1% as it averages out, then the effective tax rate increased about 3.5%.
How long has it been since it's been that big of a jump?
Last year, it was at 3.4%.
So it's not a big hit for the taxpayer. I mean, you're talking about a 0.1% increase.
So here's 2 arguments to that. Here are 2 arguments to that. If you're, and I will give them both out of respect to both. If you're on a fixed income and your taxes are going up, say you have a $150,000 house, so your taxes are going up $100. That $100 on a fixed income is a substantial hit. So that is one factor that has to be there, and we never take light of it for the people that are on fixed incomes. I will tell you, the council chambers has it's amazing what happens in the council chambers, the emotion and the feeling inside the council chambers. And when we went through this tax increase, as the council members were in there, you could feel the tenseness, you could feel the upset stomachs. We all knew what had to be done, but we also knew how it was going to affect people. And that's where, that's the part that hurts. So we are always very understanding of the people that are on fixed incomes. The other side of that equation is if your taxes are going up $100 and you're paying it monthly in your mortgage, which many people do, your taxes go up $100, that's going to increase your taxes by about $8.50 a month. And for many people, that's affordable. And so when you look at some of these tax increases that go on out there, this one is a hit. Our home prices here are relatively modest. So even if you have a tax increase, it is still affordable. And this is making sure that there's no decrease in the amount of service, because that's the other big thing. When people, right away when the snow hits, people want the streets cleaned. They expect that. Call the police, call the fire department, call City Hall or to get permits and whatnot. We did not want to decrease the amount of services. The other thing that's very, very important to understand is our actual spending budget this year for 2021 is going to be less than 2020. That's the amount of cuts that were put in. So we cut it down substantially, even from last year's. And that's just something you don't typically see in government, where your budget is less this year than it was the year before. We made I believe there was 4 very long budget meetings on this to get it down to where it's at least palatable. And so, again, we do not make light of the fact that for folks on a fixed income, their taxes going up are going to be, it is going to be something. But I will tell you what, we're very commensurate. You know, we're going to be now, I believe, at 1025 per thousand. Rapids is up, I think, around 1239. Stevens Point is up right around 1045 or 50. Wausau was up around 1050, and they just had a reevaluation, so their tax rate went down to 985. So when people look at that, they go, well, how could they do that? Well, because they had a reevaluation. Right now, we are out of scope, if you will, because we're at 87% value of real estate, and it should be higher than that. So when a reevaluation occurs, which is going to over the next couple of years, people's homes are going to be assessed at a higher value. And so now, that doesn't mean they're going to get a tax increase. That just means that the mill rate is going to go down probably back into the nines. So they won't. So the value of their home is going to increase, but not necessarily their taxes.
Well, that I think is good news. I'm not sure how that happens, but I'm not a finance guy. You explained it about as well as you can here.
I mean, you got the numbers and the way this thing goes on, and the what I call magic math is staggering. How when you look at levy rates and mill rates and all of these different things, the money we get in from the state wasn't as much, but at the same time, we got in a nice check. City staff did a great job of calculating all the different things that we did. So when we paid for hand sanitizer, and we did, and the plexiglass throughout City Hall, and all the different things that we did, paying for people to be off, and everything that we could possibly ask for, we did. And we got a check for over $300,000 basically from the CARES Act to cover that, which is really good. We were not anticipating that, so that was helpful. So one thing I will say about Ron Alman and our finance department is I'm very proud of them. That they keep tabs on everything and get us everything that we're due.
So how did we get here to the point where we have to increase and by that much? It was a little tough for some of the aldermen to take that. They were coming in and say, well, I won't give you 7% yes, I'll give you a 3% yes, or something like that. So how did we get to where we are here? Was it part COVID related? Seems like you just said we've gotten refinance for some of that, or was this just related to that accounting error or practice?
Oh yeah, none of this had anything to do with anything other than the financing practices that they were using probably from 2007 or 2008 until we found it in 2019. That's all this is. And they kept the taxes flat at the time. Well, if you're doing magic math that makes it look like you don't need a tax increase, but you're not doing your finances right, at some point it's going to catch up to you. As an example, and I've done this example with you before. If your product cost $10.25, but you're selling it for $9.54, at some point that's going to catch up with you. That's exactly what happened. The problem was before, they were sending over money from this area here that looks at the 954. They were sending money over to cover for it inadvertently. There was no money left at City Hall or anything like that. They were doing the accounting wrong. They were sending money from the TIFs wrong, and that just hurt everything. So now that has all been fixed, if you will, and we did it in 2 years. So it took us probably 10 to 12 years to get that mess, and we relatively fixed it in 2. Now going forward, the finances should be fine. So if you look at it, we had a 7.4% increase this year. But if you look at how many years prior to this, there was no tax increase. And you look at all those years, if you look at a 10-year thing, then the tax increase is really pretty minimal. However, again, that gets into what I call the magic math. It's a rationale for why you had to increase the taxes this year. The fact of the matter is the city was not doing the finances right before. Once that was found out, we put in immediate buffers to fix it, checks and balances to make sure that it's done right. And now we have resolved that problem. So now going forward, we should be in good shape.
Well, here comes the $1 million question, and unbeknownst, you just answered it, which is if we add another 7+% this year to fix a problem that we'll be now out of, can we take that down another 3%? Or is it always going to stay there? It's like the toll booth theory, to pay for the road. Once the road's paid for, we didn't get rid of the toll booth. So where did the money go?
Well, and that's one of the thing about the way Wisconsin does their does the books. You can absolutely have a tax reduction. If we can get down to where the debt is covering itself and there's excess, that's what the TIDs are, right? If it cost us $100,000 for the debt on this TID, but we took in $150,000. Okay, so now now that $50,000 can go to pay off more debt, so you get rid of that TID quicker. That's good. If we keep our expenses lower, then you absolutely could have a tax reduction. We don't know until we actually get there to see what comes up because of the variables. We don't know. For instance, the reason I congratulated you in the very beginning of the program is because I thought you did an outstanding weather report, and I'm begging you to keep it that way. Because believe me, I watch the weather now differently. I used to watch it on, okay, am I going to have to wear a jacket or what's going to have to happen? Now I'm thinking, okay, the plows don't need to be out. We're saving money. So if you have all of those different things where you didn't use as much, that's a big factor. But when you do a budget, you never know, because it could very well be they are our streets department and public works run by Dan Canuck. They do a great job. Well, how do you forecast what the winter is going to be like? It's a crapshoot. So if it goes well and you're in budget, that's fine. But if you go over by $300,000 because Mother Nature was in a really bad mood for several weeks, now all of a sudden you run into a problem at the end of the year. So that's why these things are so important to keep up on. But right now, it looks like the city, most of the departments ran very close to budget this year and did a great job. So we're all cognizant of it. Nobody takes, at least here at the local level, I've not seen any of the aldermen or city staff taxing for granted. I've not seen anyone like that. This was a grueling decision for the aldermen to make. And they could have made the decision to, because it was interesting during the budget hearing, the city administrator recommended a 4.5% increase, and Ron Almond, the finance director, wanted 8.4. Ron Almond wanted to fix the problem. If we would have gone 4.5, basically, you find yourself in a pool floating, and most of your face is submerged except for your nose, so you're able to breathe. But if you get a high wind and a wave comes in, now you've got a problem. A 4.5% increase, that's would have done. And then next year, going through the budget system, we would still have to raise it up because we've still not caught up with that deficit. And so now we have caught up to it, to where we should be okay.
Talking with Mayor Bob McManus here on today's Insight program, this first Friday in the month of December. You can too, 384-2191, 384-2192. As we talk about the city and the business at hand here, the budget was one of the things that was probably the most on people's mind. And you knew it was coming from the next couple of years. You and I have been talking about this in the accounting practices for a couple of years now, and you just didn't know until it happened how you were going to make up the difference.
You really didn't know. And one thing that I was really happy about at this budget meeting, in speaking with aldermen that have been on the council for quite some time, we never really get people to show up to a budget meeting. Very few people show up to when we're going through the budget talks, because they have input. They have input. These are public meetings. So during the public comment period, the people can speak. They can call their alderman. They can talk to their alderman. They can set a meeting with their alderman so they know. This year, we actually had 2 people come speak, and they were very compelling. And their reasons for not wanting a tax increase made a lot of sense. COVID, why are we doing this? And they were good. I really appreciated their input. And I think after their input, I don't think that they were happy that there was a tax increase, but I think with the discussion that took place there, they at least they understood it. But that participation from people is so important, because it really does mean something. If myself as mayor or the alderman, if we don't hear from the public, I mean, we're making the decisions for the public. And so we get the information from, Ron Alman, the finance director, Steve Barg, other city officials, the department heads on what they need for their budgets. That's the information that we're getting. All of that is public. We put out the recommended budget for everybody to review. It's all online. So the more input we can get, the better off we are. Of course, if we don't get that input, then we're making the decisions solely based on the information that we're getting, and you want to fix the problem. But we did have 2, and I thought that they did a great job. They were very passionate about their responses. Their responses were really quite similar, and they were very effective. It was nice to see, but I will encourage the public to, call your alderman, let them know. Well, I mean, now it is basically done, but we're going to get into the at this coming Tuesday night at the council meeting. The utility is going to come back, and the utility is going to come back, and they're going to do a presentation on their building. And so, we'll be looking to build there. So, of course, that's going to get some media attention, and as well it should. It's going to be a big build. But what people have to understand is all the city does is bond. We basically let them use our credit rating. We don't take any money out for it. The city's not spending for that. The utility does. And they have to get the amount of approvals they have to get from the utility commission, from the DNR, from so many different places, it is a lot. So the illusion for people that don't really maybe get to a meeting or follow these things is, see, there's the city spending, $18 million after they just did a tax increase, and that's just not the case. The city is just going to be responsible for the bonding. However, the aldermen that are there and myself also know this, is that because of the build, there will be a potential rate increase to anybody that uses Marshfield utilities. Now, I will say this, our utilities, if you compare our rates to other different utilities, we are so far lower, because they're very effective. They're very efficient. The new building will be even more efficient, so they won't have to have 2 locations. It'll be centralized to 1. Be a lot of major benefits to it, but it is still spending. So I'm hoping that people will watch that or come. If they do come to a council meeting, they do have to, we've got hand sanitizer in the front. There is a mask required anytime you're in City Hall. And so that part is very important, but it's important to be involved.
Talking with Mayor Bob McManus here on today's Insight program, talking about public comment and public involvement. But let me play the part of the public advocate here for a moment, and that is that the people who came and spoke didn't exactly get what they wanted. And so people have this thing, you hear it all the time, they're going to do what they want anyway.
Sure.
And this kind of furthers that, because it needed to be done, but at least you heard why it was going to be a problem for some people. And maybe some people paused a little bit, but it went through. So they're thinking to themselves, well, I went and spoke, but it really didn't make a difference in what the vote came out.
Well, anytime you have 10 people together, you're going to have varying opinions. So if there were 10 people that came for public comment, I've had people come up to me saying we should increase it more and do more for streets. And I mean, they want a much higher tax increase. So yes, 2 people did come and they're valuable voices and whatnot, but you have to look at everything in a whole. You're not necessarily always going to get that. The perception is true. See, I came and I didn't get what I want, but understand that there are many different voices that we have to look at, and we have to also look at if people say we don't want any tax increase, it's financial disaster for the city. So what then do? You have to protect the city. So I didn't even want a tax increase. I was on this show saying, no, I'm not looking at it because of COVID. I mean, that's a real problem. You know, people are already beat up enough. The thing is, the city was in such a bad way because of the way it was going before. We really had to do it.
Yeah, I guess. But you understand why they feel so cynical sometimes.
Absolutely. I definitely understand it, but this is why I always advocate, because there have been people in a couple of years ago, we had an issue over at 8th and Hemlock, and it was being discussed. That was going to pass. And then we got 20 people in the common council chambers going on reasons that it shouldn't, and it didn't. And it got squashed. And because of the involvement. And if we would not have heard from those people in the voice, they were neighbors directly right there. If we would not have heard from them, then it would have passed. Now, you can imagine the other residents in the city that wanted it to go through, and they didn't get what they want. So there's always going to be that's the whole thing, is just because you don't get exactly what you want does not mean that people aren't listening.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. It doesn't mean you're going to win here one way or the other. I guess it just means you're going to have an opportunity to be heard.
Correct.
Let's go to the phone. Good morning. You're on the Inside program.
Well, good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Right. I've been a resident of Marshville for quite a long time. And really, I'm not the type who'd ask why, because we always want solutions and resolutions and all that. And I would like to know, for those who doesn't go online and all that, do you have like a concise or a report, besides the newspaper, of course, and of course you're talking today, and I'm listening to you. And where do we get a copy of those that you discussed that particular day when you have the public participation?
So are you asking, where do you get a copy of like the budget or?
No, that particular day of which you have discussed this and all that, and what was the suggestions and all that.
Sure. What you could do is you can go on the city website, and you can go to, but let me just get through. You can go to the city website if you have internet, and you can go to the different meetings, and you can print off or you can view what the minutes are. If you don't have access to a computer or anything like that, you can call Deb Hall, the city clerk, and you can request her that she print out the minutes of the budget meetings, and you'd be able to have those in writing.
Okay, because right now I'm over here at this Carl's apartment, and I know they're trying to make some improvement here. And so I would need to call Deb, and I know Mr. Firer, and I think could he be the alderman and the representative in the district?
Yes, if that's where you live, then you would call Mike Fire. You can, and he could help you with that and be a good facilitator on exactly what to do. Which is exactly, Jeff, what we were talking about is calling it. This is a great call because she's showing that, okay, this is the issue that I have. I want to get printed transcripts. Maybe I don't have access to the computer and whatnot. So you can start with calling your alderman. Mike Fire sounds like he's your alderman, and otherwise you could always call the city clerk and they could print those off for you.
Okay, because like many public around, I am with you.
Good. Thank you very much.
You have a good day.
You too.
All right. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it here. 384-2191 or 384-2192 here with Mayor Bob McManus on today's Insight program, this first Friday of the month of December. As we make our way toward the new year here. Good morning. You're on the Insight program.
Yes, I have not much new, a little bit new about Spencer, but talking about housing development is my thought here, and the lack of it in Marshfield, and so people don't want the city to spend money to put in the infrastructure, and they say the merchants, of course, want you to buy local, but yet you got two super highways trucking people in here by the thousands. That what they do with the money, I'm not sure. I imagine they buy gas here and this and that here, but it's not the same as living here. And apparently the housing is the issue and the lack of it. But yet you look, I mentioned Spencer, they got something going on up there. I'm not even sure what it is, but they got massive amounts of earth moving equipment going on up there right now. So little old Spencer's got something going that Marshfield can't muster. So how's that to compare to Spencer, whereas Marshfield is stuck in the mud on development? Stuck in the mud. The developers, as I understand it, well, how can they afford to put up the dollars required? And the city doesn't do it because the taxpayers don't see the end result there. So, I mean, this is nothing new, as I mentioned. But the cost is enormous to the city. Don't you think, Mayor?
You just did a great job of explaining part of the frustration. And Jeff, the caller brings in exactly what you and I were just talking about, but in a very crystal clear format. For a developer, it used to be that if a developer went into a new area, they built all the infrastructure. Now with the cost of infrastructure, which is the streets, the plumbing, the waste, and everything else, electrical lines, it is almost cost prohibitive to a builder to go in to do that, to then sell lots, to then sell properties. So as the caller said, many times what's going to happen is they want to get the city involved. Well, we've had, just this past year, we had a developer come to two different sites that on one wanted to put up, I think, 15 homes and the other one 30, something like that. And these were going to involve city engagement of helping out with the infrastructure, as the caller said. So the city was willing to look at that, because if you have this big lot right now that's worth, say, I don't know, $200,000, and you're getting a minimal tax because it's just flat land, and now you're going to bring in 30 homes. Now it's going to make sense for the city to get involved, because you're going to make it back in the tax income where you were getting a minimal amount. So again, the caller is exactly right. So then it goes to planning commission. This happened on both of these developments. The developer goes through the cost of putting up, what all these different developments were going to be. We're going to have these homes and these homes, and these will be the price ranges, and the price ranges fit, and they fit along with our master plan, and everything is great. So they come to the planning commission to get this approved, and in walk 30 citizens, irate over the fact that the lot behind their house that's been empty, that is now going to have homes on it. And maybe they don't like the size of homes or the type of homes or whatever. So this would be a development that would be very, very simple to do. And again, if government wasn't listening, there'd be 2 new developments in. But instead, citizens came and they were 100% against it. And, you know, when you have a council chambers and there's 30 different people talking and they're irate, neither development passed. The builder basically said, okay, look, we're not going to put up with this. If you don't want it, you don't want it. So this brings up, this is where government was willing to do something and the people spoke. They came. We heard them. And so that's where government and the citizens do work together. And very rarely do we get that type of recognition of, oh, yeah, we were listened to. Now, but to the caller's point, how are we supposed to get more development? I mean, Spencer can do it. No disrespect to Spencer. Spencer's doing it, but in Marshfield, when we go do that, we do tend to run into obstacles of the surrounding neighbors. Now, again, the surrounding neighbors have every right to come and voice their concern with the type of home. Maybe they think it's going to be too big, too small. But the caller brings up a great point, and if we can get that one solved, it would sure be helpful. Because if the immediate residents don't want it, you know, then you run into your problem. We have a housing shortage here in Marshfield. And you see, every time there's a tax increase, people say, well, we're going to move and stuff like that. We don't have enough houses to sell to people. And the ones that are on the market typically get sold in a matter of a couple of days. And many times with multiple offers. So Marshfield is in demand. And as the caller says, we've got to get more housing here. That is a big issue, but it's going to take everybody's input. But the caller could not have put this in a more perfect format for exactly what we're dealing with.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for calling. I hope you, again, the answer doesn't always soothe the situation, but it is what it is, as
Right.
the old saying goes.
But the key thing that I really want you to hear from that, though, Jeff, is people's voices do matter when they go to the alderman or the planning commission or whatever. They matter, but if they don't show up because, well, is it really going to matter? That's just not helpful.
All right, we'll take our break here and be back to wrap up the show. You can still get in 384-2191, 384-2192, talking with Mayor Bob McManus on today's Insight program. AM 1450 WDLB's Insight program here for the first Friday in the month of December. First Friday on Insight means that we are talking with Mayor Bob McManus here on today's program. One thing you wanted to get in here is the holidays are upon us. The first, I guess, what I consider of the holidays, if you take Thanksgiving through New Year's, is gone by. And we had, because of COVID, a revamped community meal, but you wanted to say that it went well, and there's another one on the way?
It really did. Jan Altman and a whole group of great people put this together, and they utilized this down at the American Legion, and I think they had 5 cooks, and they had, I think, 12 people out working to put meals together, and 3 to 4 people running out to the cars, and it was on Thanksgiving Day. Normally they do about 500 meals. And this year they couldn't do it inside. It was all drive-through, and it was supposed to start at 11 and go to 1. There were people starting to line up at 9 in the morning, and during the day they went through, and they had to, because of the amount of people there, they had to start at about 11:15. And in that 2-hour period, they went through 775 meals. They actually had to put a barricade up at 1:45, and the last 12 cars that went out did go out with meals, but 775 meals, they had no food left. So it was for the people that went and were able to go for that. They were very happy. Now there's another one coming up on for Christmas, and it will be at the American Legion, and they do need help because the Thanksgiving event was put on by Jan Altman and her crew, and they got all the volunteers. They want to do one for Christmas at the American Legion, and they do need volunteers there to come on Christmas Eve for 2 to 3 hours to volunteer, and then on Christmas Day from probably 10 till about 1. And if you can only work an hour or 2 hours, that's fine. You can let them know. But you can contact Mike Fire at the American Legion. His phone number is 715-305-0123. And if you would like to volunteer, we could certainly use it because that is expected. So again, you can contact Mike Fire of the American Legion, 715-305-0123.
So the unexpected amount, I guess you might say, thinking it would be down in participation because you had to wait so long, because everybody had to wait in line. Normally you can walk in and they'll kind of seat you, hostess style, to at least point you to where there's some open tables. But in this case here, that was a long wait for people in their cars, and they waited.
It was a long wait. I mean, at one point I was out doing some deliveries of people, and that was fun to do, to take them to the different apartments or houses and whatnot. And people were very appreciative of it. But I mean, at one point, I think there was probably about 70 cars down the street. And because of the way they were doing the distribution, people were getting through relatively quickly once it started to go. When you start off and you just open the doors and you're 70 cars deep, that takes a little while. But the line, although it was long, moved very well. It was a very well run dinner.
See, I didn't go because of that. I knew that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The first at 11 o'clock, you're not going to get in.
Right.
You're not. You can figure that. I mean, I'm one of these guys that likes to walk up, get my stuff, and go.
Sure.
The convenience of a gas station. I eat a gas station sushi, as they used to say, because I can come up, get it, and go. I don't have to stand around. But it was a very much needed thing that went through this year, as opposed to everything that was canceled, for one thing. And they're going to try it again on Christmas to do the same thing. Now they've got experience and know what it looks like. May or may not have as many. I don't know. Christmas is a little different animal than Thanksgiving.
It is, but there's still the people out there with a need, and this was really something. It was to see the appreciation of the people going through getting the meals. And I was out, as I said, on a couple deliveries, and you could see that some people did not want to go out. Of course, I was wearing a mask on deliveries, and people answering the doors were in a mask, and they were fearful to go outside, and they're fearful on a holiday. And so if this meal can help in any way, it was very rewarding. Let's just say that, to think that you're helping some folks. And Jan, they just did an incredible thing. And they, like many of the restaurants here, they had to completely retool how they did their distribution, because they had people, as you said, coming in eating family style. And so you would expect some glitches, that this is the first year it's all drive-through. And there were none. It just flowed like clockwork. So it was, what they did is amazing. 775 meals.
So now, what is your honorary duties here? Are you having any tree lightings, or are you doing anything for the holidays here around the area?
No, we didn't have there's no official duties or whatnot. I mean, I'll probably walk up and down Central, just because I love it. I love the lights. I mean, and Central Avenue at night is just beautiful. I think, I have been out, and people are a little bit more festive. I have been encouraged. I've been out to restaurants and whatnot, and most people are really doing a great job of social distancing and everything else. And it's interesting where we're going with COVID now. You've heard, we were talking about this before we went on air, that they do have a vaccine out, and that should be coming out relatively soon, it sounds like. And then they've got to get to distribution. So, but now the big thing is who's got dry ice, because these things have to come, these vials or however they send it has to come 100 degrees below zero. Holy buckets. That's going to be
You're
cold.
going to put that in my arm?
That's going to be cold. Can we warm that up just a little bit before you put that in? But
That's gonna
I'm
move
sure they've got that. Maybe it just has to be stored that way, and then they warm it up to room temp. I have no idea. But it will, it's we're looking really, really forward to 2021. I think we've had it with 2020.
Yeah, well, but it's like you say on your birthday. Do you feel older?
Right.
No, it's not going to change much.
Right.
It's just one day to the next.
Right.
Sun goes up, sun goes down. The calendar says, but that's all.
Yep.
It's got to keep up with this probably for a long time yet until everything shakes out.
Yeah, it'll be months down the road before they can get enough vaccinations and whatnot. So
did you get a chance to see family, or did you stay separated?
no, we, for the most part, my boys were here, and that was about it. We didn't have normally we have family come in from California, from Minnesota, and it's a very large gathering. It's very small.
Yeah. People chastise you for not wearing a mask or being out, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, I guess quarantine. Everybody says everybody can. Anytime you see anybody out, they're like, "What are you doing out?" Well, getting groceries or something. Getting gas in the car.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. When my wife and I, when we go out, we wear a mask everywhere we go. Once you get into a restaurant or something, for the most part, we're pretty socially distanced. And in a restaurant, you don't necessarily have to wear a mask. So I think everybody is careful. And I think that's why, when Wisconsin's numbers spiked several weeks ago, and now I'm just hoping that they continue to go lower and lower and lower. And I think people are maybe being a little bit more cautious, and that's helpful.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us here once a month.
Thank you.
And for you who are listening here, and those, of course, who participated on the Inside program, Mayor Bob McManus, on this first Friday in the month of, well, every month for that matter. And next week, we'll be talking with Marshfield PD. We've got 5 Fridays this month, so we'll fill that up. And of course, one of them is Christmas, so we'll have to let that one go as well here. And the sheriff on the last Friday of the month on WDLB.
Hometown Radio.